Hello and welcome to my brand new podcast. This is the Microsoft Business IT podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weston. Hi everybody and welcome to the Microsoft Business IT podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weston. So I'm going to start with an apology that this podcast is a couple of days later than what I actually intended this to be released. And the main reason for it being released, and I don't really like making excuses, but this time I feel like I've got a legitimate one. I've been playing with new toys. And the reason why I've delayed making this podcast is because I wanted to play with these toys a little bit more before I actually came and started talking to you about this. Now, the toys that I'm referring to here are the tools that are contained in Microsoft's new AI suite of digital assistants, or what we are now commonly knowing as Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot is a set of tools that Microsoft have been talking about since probably the middle of last year when they first started really getting excited about this. And it's all stemmed from their collaboration and their close working with OpenAI. Now, OpenAI are more commonly known for ChatGPT, which you have probably heard of, and DALL-E, which is the AI generating mechanism for creating images. Now, Copilot is one of these areas which has been massively built into the Microsoft ecosystem, whether that is from a developer perspective. So if we have developers, they can use Copilot to help write code. We've got Microsoft Designer, which is out there in the world at the moment, which you can sign up for and use a standard Microsoft account to access, and that's going to allow you to create AI generated images. Or whether you're using Bing, and yeah, I appreciate a lot of people don't use Bing, but actually one of the key things that it does bring is the ability to go and chat with OpenAI or GPT services in order to go and find results or find answers to my questions rather than having to go and trawl through lots of websites. So that's where we saw the real first push with regards to Copilot. But what we've actually seen now is a much wider rollout of Copilot, and particularly for your day-to-day tools, Microsoft Office as an example. Now, the actual GA, so the global availability date for Copilot was actually much earlier in the year. But we were all really looking forward to the big launch of Copilot because there's lots of people like me who want to play with the new toys to see what I can do to push them so we can actually help to make them better. Now, when it got to the initial go live date, or the general availability rollout, what we found was that it only rolled out to large-scale enterprises. So it was a minimum of 300 seats in a business, a large license outset, which meant that ultimately a huge portion of us Microsoft 365 users were left without the new tools, without being able to take advantage of artificial intelligence and what having an AI assistant can actually do for us. Roll on a few weeks, and what we've actually just received was the GA rollout of Microsoft 365 Copilot, but for all Microsoft 365 licenses. So that now means that everybody, including micro businesses, startups, small businesses, wherever you sit on the scale, we all now have access to Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, the first thing to understand is Copilot is an add-on. So we do have to go and pay for the additional licenses, and this is on a per person basis, to be able to take advantage of AI. Whether it's worth it or not, I'll let you decide later on. I've now been playing with it. I'm using it actively myself, and I've got my own thoughts, which I'll share with you later on. But to help you understand that this is a £30 roughly price tag per user. But you first of all really need to understand what you get in there. Because £30 on the outset, if I just say £30 and leave it at that, it sounds expensive. But Copilot actually now becomes very much available across a large number of our day-to-day applications. Now, I'm going to start with the explanation of the two which I have found most useful so far, and I'll explain why I found them useful. Now, the first is Microsoft Outlook. So Microsoft Outlook, particularly with the new Outlook. Now, yes, if you ever toggle the switch in the top corner of your Outlook and you switch across to new Outlook, it's a very, very different feel to what we are used to with our standard application. And I'm still on the fence about whether I like the new Outlook or not, but that'll be a future episode. But what I am enjoying is that when I am using the new Outlook, I get a huge amount of the Copilot functionality available in the application with me. Now, what that means is I've got something to help me quickly and more easily write my emails. So I can do that just by creating an outline of what I want my email to say, and then using prompts or using chat to actually go and fill in the gaps. So I can get that to go and look at my data. I can go and ask it to summarize some information from maybe some of my documents into my email, and it will go and put that in for me. Now, all I need to do after that is then go and tidy it up, actually make it sound more like me and less like an AI type of email. But ultimately, the bulk of the message is done, and it's really just a tidy up, more so than me writing from scratch. And that's just one nice thing. Now, I'm still playing with that. Whether I actually use that forevermore, we'll see. I am trying it, and I'm trying different ways of being able to use it. Where the big benefit is for me, and now I'm going to put being as this is the Microsoft Business IT podcast, I'm going to put my busy business owners head on for a moment, because on a normal day in Vantage 365, I can receive anything from 20 to maybe 60 emails a day. Now, for some of you, will probably go, Matt, that's nothing. I get more than that. But there's times where I miss emails, or I receive a chain of emails. Now, certainly, I am a sworn enemy of email. So anything that will help me to reduce my time in this time vortex that is Microsoft Outlook, that gets a big tick in the box for me. So the biggest feature that I found with Copilot, particularly in Microsoft Outlook at the moment, is that I can open up an email. Maybe it's the top of a chain of however many emails, several emails long, and I can click summarize. And what that's going to do is use the AI learning models that have been trained over the last however many years. It's going to be able to read that email and basically break it down into something that is going to take a few seconds to read, maybe 30 seconds, rather than having to go and trawl back through every single email in order to go and get the gist of what's going on. Now, for that, just that one feature alone, I would pay £30 for that, because that is a massive, massive time saver for me. Now, that feature I have seen appear in the normal Outlook as well. Now, the normal Outlook has things like summarize. I've not yet seen any other Copilot functionality in there. Most of the Copilot functionality is targeted at the new Microsoft Teams. So just be aware that if you do start playing with Copilot, then there are limitations to staying with what I call the old style, the classic type of Outlook app. Whereas if you switch to the new one, you're going to get a lot more. The second one is Microsoft Teams. Now, again, with this, I think my usage of Teams is quite good. I'm usually quite efficient. I'm on top of my notifications. I'm on top of my conversations. So I thought I was actually quite efficient at this. But the Copilot that is baked into Microsoft Teams has actually, hand on heart, blown me away. So there are certain things in here, such as being able to use my Copilot to, again, summarize or go and find information. I can go and type in there, tell me about my upcoming week, and it will go and look at my calendar, it will go and look at my emails, look at my actions, and summarize my week for me. Now, this is effectively becoming my personal assistant because it's also allowing me to then go, what do I need to prepare for? And again, the chat-based approach is then giving me information back that I can use to get myself ready. So all of this so far has been absolutely awesome because I've now got that PA, I can ask questions, and I'm going to get a response back based on on the information that is contextual to me. But the one element that I have been really trialing, and this is the one feature that I was excited about before even getting my hands on Copilot, and that is being able to summarize or being able to go and recap a Microsoft Teams meeting. Now, from a perspective of how we run the meeting, we have to record it, we need the transcription, the Microsoft Teams needs to know what's going on. But once that Teams recording has been created, it can then use that and run that through AI models, and it can identify what was discussed, who was involved, who was saying what, and can effectively give you a breakdown of what was said and said by whom. And then the big thing for me, and I absolutely love this, is it will summarize and identify the actions that have been called out during that meeting. Now, so I tried this with a customer last week. And we were just chatting away. It wasn't a formal meeting as you would expect, and we just identified a few things that we needed to do as we were going through. But when I went back to the recap, it actually found every single action that we'd spoken about, because I actually compared it to my notes. And the transcription and the summarization of the meeting, again, was actually quite good. Now, this is going beyond what I've just described with just being able to go and look at my calendar or going back and summarizing my emails. Because now it's using AI not just to go and look at my data, it's actually using the video, it's using the audio inputs to create content. Now, for me, again, that is a massive, massive time saver. Don't get me wrong, there were a few mistakes in there, and my company is called Vantage 365, and in one part of the transcript it referred to us as Fantasy 365. So there's a few things I've got to go in and change before I actually send those meeting notes out. But ultimately, it was actually pretty accurate. It was a very, very good summarization and recap. So that is ultimately going to save me a huge amount of time in the future, because I've no longer got to go, right, I need to type my notes up and then go and send them out. All I'm going to be doing is taking the recap information, tidying it up, making sure it is articulating the key points that I want it to articulate, and then I'm sharing those. Massive, massive time saver. So once we get through Outlook and Teams, we've got the other applications that we are generally using. We're using Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Now, Copilot is making an appearance in those. It's also making an appearance in OneNote, if any of you use OneNote for using for taking notes or in meetings or in sessions or wherever actually you choose to use it. Now, when we actually come into Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and I'm going to focus on these ones more so than OneNote and Loop, again, I'll talk about in a future episode. This is going to be, again, a big time saver because I'm going to start using the prompt-based approach to creating content to actually go and create slides or go and create Word documents, Word content, or even to go and ask questions about my data that maybe I've got in my Excel spreadsheet. Now, if I wanted to do this previously, I would have to go through some quite heavy AI building tools to go and create, particularly around Excel, to go and say what are the estimates of what we are going to be bringing in 12 months' time, as an example. So the fact that I've got AI now built into Excel and I can ask questions of my data, that's a great feature. How much I'm going to use that, I don't know yet personally, because I personally use Power BI for a lot of things. But I'm going to play with Excel a little bit more, and maybe I'll do an Excel session a little bit later. But certainly within Word and PowerPoint, this is actually quite powerful. As an example, I was doing a presentation last week, and I needed to articulate how information architecture is created in SharePoint. Now, I know a lot of you will go, What, Matt, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is how I build up my lists, my libraries, my contents, my sites. And I thought, you know what, I know this subject well enough that I'm actually going to use AI to see how accurate the AI generated content is. So opened up my chat prompt, started typing what I wanted into the chat, and a few seconds later, it actually generated quite an accurate slide for me. So if I can do that, and I can reduce the amount of time that I take to create content, again, everything that I'm talking about here comes back to saving time. It is the big thing that I can't buy. I've only got a finite amount of time from. So actually, if I can hand some of this off to automation, or what I'm now looking at, which is artificial intelligence, you know what, big ticks in the boxes for me. So with these elements in place, actually, there's a lot of great tools that are helping me to really become more productive. But where the big advantage from a Copilot perspective comes in, because yes, you could have done a lot of that just by using ChatGPT. Where the Copilot element comes in is the fact that it's sat within Microsoft 365, it's sat within my tenancy, which means that I'm not only creating content based on the public models that have been trained and made available to ChatGPT and a lot of all of the other OpenAI functionality. I'm now actually talking to AI models that are reading and training on my business data. So a slide, for example, could be generated based on a customer interaction or customer interactions across email, across Teams, across my meetings, wherever that content is. I can bring it together using Copilot. So it's actually becoming much more intelligent and much more aware of my own environment. Now, the big fear around this is that, well, actually, if Copilot is using my business data to be able to articulate and train and answer my prompts, does that mean it's available to everybody? And the big answer here is no, it is not available to everybody. If the information and the data sits in your Microsoft 365 tenancy, therefore it sits in your Outlook, it sits in your Teams or your SharePoint or your OneDrive. If it sits in your tenancy, that's where it stays and only you will be able to access it. Now, this brings me on to the one key piece of preparation that I suggest that you all do before you start going down too far into a Copilot route. Now, if I want to use Copilot in anger, then the big thing that we need to make sure is that we are securing data properly. Because just like everything else within Microsoft 365, if you have access to something, i.e. somebody may have shared something from their OneDrive to you, that means you have access to it. That means that you can search for it. It can be surfaced to you through AI. So what this means is that you may be prompting or you may be asking questions, and if things aren't secured properly, there is a risk of that data being made available to people who you don't necessarily want to have access to it. Now, we saw this issue with Microsoft Delve 5-6 years ago when Delve was a big push. Now, Delve, it was effectively using all the Microsoft APIs, all the Microsoft services that are talking to each other to surface content that was interesting to you. So at that time, very, very crude, I suppose, a little bit of intelligence, Microsoft 365 was going, right, what have you been working on? What are your colleagues working on that may be similar, that you can access that information? And what we found was that because people weren't securing data properly, Microsoft Delve was making available data that really I shouldn't have been seeing. Now, I previously worked in quite a large multinational who really fell foul of this. And in order to achieve this, we basically turned off all of the intelligence within Microsoft 365. So we really tied not just one arm behind its back, but we tied both arms behind its back and then kicked its legs out from under it. It was a big lesson learned. Now, those lessons that we learned then are the same mistakes are now being made again, where we've become very complacent with how we secure documents, where we store them, and making sure that we don't share them with the wrong people. So there's an exercise that I suggest that before you go too far down a Copilot route, particularly if you're going to roll it out to multiple people across your organizations, make sure that you have gone through and you've been ensured that your secure data or your confidential or your sensitive data is secured properly. So it's not shared with everybody, it's locked down to only the people who need to know it. Depending on how much data you've got, that may be a big or it may be a small exercise, but ultimately it's something that should be done anyway, regardless of the fact that you're going to Copilot. But ultimately, once you've done that, then Copilot is something that you can start to look at rolling out. Yes, there are other prereqs. Yes, there are other things to do to prepare. But the key thing is making sure that the data is secured first of all. So ultimately, Copilot, I'm actually surprising myself by saying this. I'm really amazed at how much I'm using it. And I was skeptical to start off with, and I didn't think I would be. So, I mean, to really wrap up everything I've been saying, I've been describing how it can be used, what Copilot can be used for. If I bring it back into my world now as a business owner, actually, this is going to be a very, very big time saver. And like I do with automation, if I was to go and put a monetary value on this, so like I said, the price tag for this is £30 per user per month. If I can get back, I'm just going to, for argument's sake, say that I charge myself out at £20 an hour. Very, very rough, very rough figure there, just for the purpose of articulating this. If I can get back an hour and a half, that has covered my cost, because I can now spend that time doing something more valuable. And ultimately, I think that's going to be the big driver for me. That's going to be the reason why this is now becoming more and more part of my day-to-day working. The fact that I can chat, I can get an answer, I can move on. I can then ask another question, I can move on. So is this going to be a big thing for us, particularly, and again, I'm going to bring this back into the world of business ownership, because not everybody needs Copilot, in my opinion. Unless you're going to get a benefit from it, there's no point rolling it out and paying out for the licenses for everybody. So for me, certainly at the moment, in the exec level of a company, this is going to be an absolute game changer, where you are constantly being hammered with information that you need summarizing, where you need to get decision advantage very, very quickly. And Copilot's going to help us to get that. Or if you're in a very high-paced job where actually you've got a lot of information that you need to collate, you then need to consolidate and then send out or react to. Again, I think Copilot is going to be a massive, massive area of growth. And ultimately, I recommend that you do go and try this. And again, I'm surprising myself by saying just how much I'm enjoying using Copilot, that I'm actually putting myself out and say, go and try it. £30 per month, per user. Doesn't need to be everybody, so think about who's going to benefit from this and then give that a go. Ultimately, get things right in your environment, and then you will really get the full benefits from it. And if you want some help to get that right, if you just want some advice or some guidance, do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Matt Weston or Matt Weston 365. Same on LinkedIn. Or if you are listening to or watching this on YouTube, post in the comments, please. If there's anything that I can do to just point you in the right direction to help answer your questions or help you prepare, then please do let me know, and I will be happy to share my thoughts with you. So there we go. That's my thoughts on Microsoft Copilot, and I will revisit this topic again in the future, because as it grows, as I get more, I find more and more from it, I'm going to share these learnings with you, so that you don't have to do as much yourself. Give it a go. But for now, I am going to sign off there because I'm going to let you, I'm sure by now you want to go and play with artificial intelligence. So I will look forward to speaking to you in the next session. Have a great day.